we'll be ready to go in here. Right after Big Daddy Chucho gives you the hit trip.
I saw him doing something for one of the.
L95, I think he works for them still. He's doing good ads and stuff like that. I love it. He's always got good energy.
This guy put on me last time. He had his name. His number.
He's got a different name.
The number wasn't showing.
We'll catch him. We'll find him. Don't worry about it. He can get as many numbers as he wants.
Yeah. 2. Good morning, and welcome to Upfront with John Baptiste on AM 970 WSTX. I'm John Baptiste here in person. He who is also known as Babu. And it's just a beautiful Monday morning out there. We're into the month of February. January has been good, not without some events that had us a little uncomfortable. But we've passed January and we're into the month of February. So it's the month when we celebrate Valentine's Day. So hopefully there'll be a lot of love going around. It's also the month when we have the agricultural food fair on the island of St. Croix. So, it's shaping up to be a month where we can have a wonderful time. Now, before we continue, the Lord, the Creator Most High, I acknowledge the existence of the Lord, the Creator Most High, who has blessed me with the gift of life. I know many people hold the view that, speaking from a personal standpoint, they say, I am God. I cannot come across like that because I don't have control. There are no guarantees that I can ensure to say that, okay, I'm going to be here tomorrow. I'm going to be here a month from now, that I'm going to keep myself here on this planet until such and such a time. No. There are some things that I can do to ensure that I'm in good health, that hopefully I can live perhaps to be 120 years like Moses, and that even coming to 120 years, I can retain my full vital force. There are lots of things I've come to know about quantum entanglements, about energy, about life force, about nutrition, about being grounded, so that I may be able to employ some of these approaches to sort of like ensure that I remain in good health and that I can perhaps be vibrant, full of joie de vivre up until the time when I am called home. Notice I say when I'm called home because I believe that, there is a destination beyond Earth, and that even though we may not enter that destination in our physical bodies, but on a certain level, in a certain way, we will enter that dimension, that destination at a given time. Some have said that, we all come here with an expiration date. I don't doubt that. We have been given a time. How should I put it? A time certain to be here. Generally, it is 70 years. It may move out to 120. Actually, there is a proclamation of 120 years given to mankind in Genesis. And then later on, in the book of Psalms, David, speaking about this life, says that the days of our years are 60 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they be 60 years, yet are our days labor and sorrow. And so I see this more like a perspective coming from the Psalmist, and not like the decree which is given in the book of Genesis. I think it's Genesis chapter 16 or somewhere thereabout, where the Lord says, yet his days shall be. My spirit shall not always strive with man, because in that he is also flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. And so I believe in a Creator Most High. I believe in a Creator, the Most High, the sovereign ruler of the universe. I believe that he's given us some parameters within which we ought to conduct ourselves in this life. And I try my best to adhere to these things. I've not always been that way, folks. I run afoul of these regimens, these dictates, if I may. And they're beautiful dictates. But I run afoul of those things for a period of time until I came to my senses, where I decided to put aside childish things. And it doesn't mean that simply because I have matured to the point where I put aside childish things that I'm all of a sudden Mr. Goody Goody Two Shoes. No, that's not it. As a matter of fact, the mere reality that I did take some missteps, I did go afoul of the commandments of the Creator Most High, that allows me to pause when I view people making mistakes, people going wrong today, because I've got to check myself that I've done wrong, and that who says that I am above board, that I can't, fall from grace at this point in time. We have preachers, pastors, and all kinds of people who come across as being goody two shoes, and then they suddenly slip and fall. So you got to be realistic. But anyway, I'm thankful for the gift of life. I thank the Creator Most High, notwithstanding different perceptions that folks may have. And it's good to be here, and I'm going to try my best to be of service to my fellow human beings, of service to the Most High, because I consider myself a servant child of the Most High. And the high school I attended, taught me to enter that school, that institution, to learn and to depart, to be of service to my fellow human beings. I think I have somebody on the line. Let's see who that is.
Yes, please hold.
Hello, caller.
Good morning, Mr. John Baptiste. How are you doing today, sir?
Good morning to you and welcome to the program. I thought perhaps I had picked up the wrong line. All right. But anyway, good to have you, man.
Well, I just want to read something quick to you and the listening audience. Some research I've been doing since the Tokyo bond market crashed a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, well, let me look into see how or if this would affect our special purpose vehicle bonds. And the Japanese bond market crisis, featuring a spike in 30 and 40-year yields, is feeding into higher U.S. Treasury yields. As U.S. Treasury yields rise, this often puts pressure on the pricing and yield of U.S. municipal and special purpose vehicle bonds, including those from the U.S. Virgin Islands. The broader violent repricing of global debt means that U.S. VA bonds, like the other U.S.-related debt, are subject to higher borrowing costs and increased price volatility. The U.S. VA special purpose synchronization corporation previously issued bonds based on specific tax revenues, wrong taxes. While these are structurally sound, the overall increase in global interest rates driven by Japan's reduced attractiveness of bonds. With lower fixed yields forcing prices down. Conclusion: the Japanese bond crash is affecting the U.S. VA SPV bond indirectly by forcing up global borrowing costs and impacting U.S. Treasuries, which sets the benchmark for the U.S. VA bond market. So I am not heard a senator. The governor, he was, I asked him about this a week ago. He was on another talk show. And he said, well, it's not going to affect the Diageo, but it will affect GERS. Is our concern Diageo or the government employee retirement system and issuing annuities to the retirees, or even as current government employees putting in their bi-weekly contribution? So I just want to hear your take on that, with what is being reported globally in the financial markets when it comes to bonds.
Well, first of all, Amar, the governor actually told you that this would impact the GRS but not Diageo. Is that what he said to you?
Correct.
Well, here is where I have my initial problem with the governor's take. He cannot leave cruise and rum aside and just simply say that it will not impact Diageo. Why not bring the two of them into the mix? Because the cover over revenues that we get right now comes from both of the rum companies. And so why leave one out of the mix in his discussion with you? I don't understand that.
Well, let me say this, Mr. Jean Baptiste. When I look into Diageo's rum sales for the year of 2025, it was down by 9.1%. I couldn't get any sort of data on cruise and rum. But if Diageo sales in 2025 are down almost 10%, that would affect the rum cover over because, and I googled for the contiguous 48 because that is how we get the rum cover over from sales of rum in the 48 contiguous. So, like I said, I couldn't get the crucian figures, but overall, it seems like alcohol sales are down. And when you look at the dynamics and what is taking place with, as they call it, Gen Z, this younger population, they're not participating in a lot of rum and spirit consumption. They're more into pills and maybe even cannabis. So if we have a continuous decline in rum sales, even though we now have the fixed cover over price at $13.25 in Trump's bill, you know, that is going to affect the funds coming back into the Virgin Islands because it's the rum cover over that we receive back through the Treasury and the Interior, correct?
But then let me just share this with you and those who are listening or viewing. There are many pieces that we've not put together in terms of the entire rum cover over business and how it impacts us. We have not put in place the required collaboration, the system to monitor that and to make sure that everything is being done in compliance with the law. For example, you're now sharing with us that production has dropped as far as Diageo is concerned by approximately 10%. In the agreement between Diageo and the United States Virgin Islands government, Diageo is obligated to produce a certain amount of rum on an annual basis. In other words, there's a minimum level of production. And so we ought to have persons or entities in the Virgin Islands looking at that to make sure that that aspect of it is not being compromised or finds itself out of compliance. And that's not the only thing. There are several aspects of the Diageo agreement that calls for compliance at different levels. And I should think that our government should have had some kind of mechanism in place to make sure that there is compliance across the board. The research that you have done, the matters that you're looking into, our government should have had some kind of an entity and a mechanism in place so that these things are being met on aggressively with post haste, so that we know exactly what threats we're looking at. I don't know if, based on what you've said, I don't know if that impacts bonds that have already been issued as opposed to what may be issued eventually, And so that's something we have to make certain that there is no impact on bonds that have already been sold out there, And if it is what we may sell eventually, because that special purpose vehicle is still in place, still empowered to issue bonds. So these are all things that we need to look into, and I don't know why the governor didn't take time to expound on some of that in his discussion with you.
Well, I don't think he really had time. It was a talk program, a talk show. So I just said, I asked him why, because this happened. Last Monday was the State of the Territory, and the Saturday before that is when the Japanese bond market crashed. So the team should have been aware of that, and he should have mentioned something in the State of the Territory, because this is vital to the economy of the Virgin Islands.
There are several things that the governor omitted to touch upon during his State of the Territory address, and a number of things that are of critical importance at this juncture in the history and development of the United States Virgin Islands. I didn't hear him say anything about agriculture, food security, especially at a time when, you know, geopolitical situations seem to be volatile. He didn't address any of that. And there are other areas of our socio-economic status that he failed to address. The thing about it is that when you look at the rum cover over in particular, I hear a lot of people talking about rum cover over. And all of a sudden they're making it such a big deal that we permanently have the 1350, or rather 1325 coming to us. 1325 coming to us. The other 25 cents is for administrative purposes of the program. But that is something that has been given to us periodically whenever there has not been an amendment to make sure it continues. Sometimes when that amendment came into force, it was given to us retroactively. This time, it was not given to us retroactively. The good thing is that, yes, it is now permanent. It's not shifting between 1025 and 1325. But
1050 and 1325.
right, okay. But here is the thing about it. This is something that's been long established. People talk as though it's a novelty. That is not the case. The second thing is that the way how this is structured, rum which is produced by foreign jurisdictions, say Barbados, St. Lucia, Antigua, Guatemala, etc., that rum comes into the United States, and an excise tax is also collected from rum that comes from foreign sources. That pool of money, the excise taxes collected from foreign sources, that is now split between Puerto Rico and the United States Virgin Islands on the basis of a formula that was devised. Now, that formula is based upon the amount of rum that the two jurisdictions produce annually. And so, traditionally, Puerto Rico produced much more than we did here in the territory. And so they got the lion's share of that portion of rum cover over revenues. When Diageo moved to the Virgin Islands, the formula changed. So that now the Virgin Islands was getting a little more from that particular source, which is excise taxes coming from foreign jurisdictions, being split between Puerto Rico and the United States Virgin Islands. People don't talk about that. But it means that our share from that has now increased with the presence of Diageo here in the territory. And these are some things I would like the experts to talk about. The other thing I would like to hear experts talk about is that let's look at past performance before we had Diageo and Crucian Rum operating in the territory. Operating rather in the territory. And since the combined companies, Diageo and Crucian Rum, have been producing rum and exporting to the United States, what is the volume of or the quantity of cover over revenues coming to us? How do we compare that with the period before that? We're being told right now that 25% of the general fund revenues comes from rum cover over monies. That's what the governor at least submitted in one of his talks. So if it is that we're getting 25% of our general fund revenues coming from rum cover over revenues right now, let's look at how it is being dispersed. Where the monies are going. And let's look at the period of time before we had Diageo and Crucian Rum. How much was coming in? What percentage of that actually went to the general fund? That's the only way we're going to make a fair assessment of the benefits we're actually getting from that program. You've got to look at the past, you've got to look at the present, and make certain determinations on the basis of those statistics. It is not being done. So everybody's talking about rum cover over. And what's the source of it? Some people even tell you that this is our money is coming from the territory, which is a lie. That is money. That is money coming from the rum companies paying the excise taxes, which of course they recover from consumers who buy the rum, and those consumers are not here in the territory. I mean, we got to be realistic about these things. So it behooves us here as a territory, as a government, as a matter of fact. The legislature has some responsibility there to make sure we have the kind of mechanism in place that we can have quick assessment of those events. So that right now there should have been somebody from the government side, from the side of GRS, who can allay the fears of retirees. Let them understand fully what has transpired, what's happening, and what it means to us in terms of, implication and what have you.
Senator Jean-Baptiste, the contractual obligation between the government of the Virgin Islands, Diageo, and Cruzen, now, would compared to before Diageo came from Puerto Rico, well, now that we have to purchase all molasses to produce, whether the rum itself in the 40 contiguous states or just globally, that takes away from our revenue. So, could you talk about that?
Well, here again, the molasses subsidy was statutorily established prior to Diageo coming here to the territory. That was being given to Cruise and Rum, But there was a cap, sort of, and I don't recall the details of the cap at this present point in time. But there was a cap in terms, some would tell you, well, that was pretty artificial or superficial, but there was a cap nonetheless, implied, whether in practice it actually worked out. And when Diageo came to the table, the government negotiating team, of course, decided, and perhaps prudently so, whatever was statutorily being given to Cruise and Rum would be given to Diageo as well. Not bad at all. But what happened is that there were a number of other items given to Diageo, which Cruise and Rum was not receiving at the time. That includes some levels of marketing support, and of course the $165 million sort of like given to them so that they could have a distillery on the island. The government of the United States Virgin Islands actually paid for construction of that distillery by Diageo,
exactly.
without any kind of an arrangement that say, well, after 20 years ownership of that, or after 30 years, whatever, ownership of that distillery would revert to the people of the territory. That was, and I voted for the deal. But I'm telling you straight up, as I speak with you this morning, my brother, that was absolutely ludicrous to give that kind of thing to Diageo, that we actually just gifted them a distillery, and on top of all the other things that we gave to them. That aside, we also have to look at the bottom line in terms of what benefits we may have derived from the deal. But the subsidy being given to Diageo and Cruise and Rum in terms of paying for the molasses being imported, that should have required more in-depth examination, even when we gave it to Cruise and Rum before it was given to Diageo as well. And again, like I said, there is a cap. Supposedly there is a cap in there that the government doesn't pay over that limit, but I don't recall the specifics of it as we speak this morning. And before you go, I'd like to also add that it would make sense even when this new company came to St. Croix, planting the sugarcane and so on, if we could have looked at the source of molasses, where we get, I believe most of it comes from one of the so-called third world countries in the Caribbean. But we should have looked at that to see what's the source of the molasses, and to see if perhaps we could have developed an industry, a micro industry here, where we actually grow the sugarcane, produce the molasses right here at home, so that we didn't have to import it. But the two rum companies operating here on the island could have had molasses readily available and obtained right here on island. But we failed to do that.
Well, Senator Jean-Baptiste, that could have been something that the Department of Agriculture could have dealt with by, like you say, you talk about growing sugarcane. That's an agricultural crop.
Yep.
Then converting that into molasses. So that could have helped, I guess, lower the subsidy, and then it could have given jobs, especially on the island of St. Croix, which have had the history of growing sugarcane and producing sugar.
Mhm.
So, you know, with that being said, I think we missed the boat with that as well.
Definitely.
Well, I wanted to mention something else, but I'm going to try to wait and call back later in the program, and maybe somebody just might want to call, and I don't want to monopolize the time right now. So, but I know right now you're preparing what's coming out this weekend with the Epstein files, and as far as what was being said, as far as the emails, the deposition where we sued David Morgan Chase with former Governor John Pelosi Young, his wife Cecile, who worked for Epstein with Southern Trust, which we know was a shell company. That's why former Attorney General Denise George was successful in her civil litigation against the Epstein estate, which we settled for $105 million. So, with what's taking place here in America, with the release of these Epstein files, it's only going to put us at Front Street because of Will St. James and all of, I guess, laws that was broken to try to count out Jeffrey Epstein. And it's all over the news, all over the internet, and it's just making us look at the old people that say from what's to what's around.
But head is here. And sometimes we're pretty harsh on our own selves, you know. Yes, it puts us in a bad light. It also puts other places in a bad light. As a matter of fact, there is a politician there is a bit of political fallout from one of the Slavic countries out there as a result of what's coming out with the Epstein file. I forget the guy's name right now, who was forced to resign as a result of that. But what we need to understand also, I think sometimes the way how the politics is played out over the heads of most of us, and when you consider that the president of the United States, his favorability has dropped in recent times because of certain actions that he's taken. And I'm wondering if these files being released right now is not an attempt to pull wool over the eyes of the people and to deflect attention. So that, because with all what we're hearing right now, I've not seen too much about the president being, involved, except for the one, what I think I saw a couple of pictures where they showed you where he was apparently having a playful moment with someone, But apart from that, there is not too much in terms of the negative that comes out showing you how the president was involved in this whole debacle. And so I'm wondering if it is
because we haven't seen the entirety
of
the files.
True.
It's having a rippling effect on the Republican Party. They just, I think it was Saturday, there was some kind of special election in Texas where a Democrat won, where Trump last year during this election won that county by some great percentage points. So it's chipping away. And as things like we see, like Lindsey Graham's Senate seat in South Carolina being challenged, it looked like he could lose that. Susan Collins in Maine looked like she could lose that. Tom Tillis, North Carolina, resigning. A Democrat is the leading candidate. So not only could we see a reversal in the House of Representatives, we could also see that in the Senate. And should the Democrats take over the entirety of both houses, which is the Senate and the House of Representatives, that could fast track Trump for his third impeachment, which now all of this thing with ISIS, what's going on with Kristi Noem and what's his name, the Secretary of Defense, and so forth. So, all we gotta do is just, take our time and see how this plays out. But it seems like we're looking to move towards a blue tsunami come this November.
Yeah. All right then. Well, we'll keep our eyes and ears peeled and attent to what's going on. All right. You take care.
You take care. Have a blessed day.
Thanks for calling and sharing. Bye. Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome. Hello, caller. Good morning.
Good morning on this beautiful Monday in paradise.
Good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Thank you. I have a trivia question for you.
I hate.
Could you
Go ahead anyway.
Could you tell me what has the power to spark speech and also have the power to suppress speech?
To suppress speech and to start speech.
Yeah.
The mind, the brain.
No, it's something outside of us.
Oh, you mean something outside of us?
Something tangible.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't crack my brains over this one this morning.
Okay. Money.
Oh, money makes the myth fly. Hello.
Money. It can keep you silent. You see, Epstein, they had a code of silence.
Oh, yes.
His
Okay.
employees had to sign a contract.
Hold a quick second. Hello, Vidal.
Yes.
Go ahead and just keep talking. Let me just take care of something quickly. Go ahead.
Yes, I said,
Hello?
based on the information that I've been hearing now, this whole debacle with the Attorney General,
Okay.
the former Attorney General, Denise George, coming
That's
out
right.
and saying how she was being put pressure upon to make certain decisions, and how the previous Attorney General, Vincent Fraser, did not approve of no waiver for Epstein. However, he was according, this is not me, it's according to what's reported, pressured by the former Governor DeYoung to grant this waiver to Epstein. And she said initially the present governor, Honorable Albert Bryan, was in favor of pursuing this matter with Epstein. And then it changed. So that's why I asked the question.
I see.
Because you see, money is a powerful force, and they always say the love of money, not the money itself, but the love of it is the root of all evil. That's a proverb, right?
Well, but don't forget that we have powerful movers and shakers behind the scenes at all times. Not necessarily those who have been exposed as being involved in egregious situations, but we have some who are never uncovered, discovered, exposed. So we don't know of what they might have done, if anything. But these people are powerful and they operate behind the scenes. So that when you check, without all of what's coming out right now, if you look back on Epstein's involvement here in the territory, the influence he exerted over would-be senators, political candidates, all kinds of people. He financed he helped finance certain people's campaigns by way of contributions, donations being given to them. And then you have the scenario where in the legislature of the Virgin Islands, they're moving special legislation. Let's be for real. It's special legislation to render accommodations to the individual. As to who was being paid to move the ball, I am not in a position to speak to that. But clearly, okay. But clearly,
I don't speak up. I know what I don't know.
Okay, but there were key players moving the ball, and if you read some of what was said, even in terms of former Senator Sean Malone, there was an email which clearly stated that he had become a target because he wasn't willing to go along with what was being offered, and so he was considered an enemy of whatever clan was willing to support Epstein, and so he became a target. So we understand what the dynamic of what has gone on. I mean, it's crazy, but it is what it is. I don't even know what to say.
The drama still unfolded.
Yeah.
And as they say, money talks and BS what.
Yeah.
And that's you for sure when it comes to campaign. Those who have the biggest war chest, put to the most persuasion.
So then let me
So it's
ask.
gonna be interesting with this delay. You have to have how much you think now the average cost to be to wage a successful senatorial campaign.
$50,000 would be my.
Yeah, that's my estimate.
Yeah, $50,000. But then again,
for the governor, you have to have a minimum.
We're talking.
$1 million
Yeah,
coming in.
yeah, definitely.
That's coming in the door. I'm like, with all the vote candidates you have, some of them I think are for spoilers. They just gonna be in there to spoil. But do you think that we should have a referendum? I know we're being non-binding because we're still under the Revised Act of 1954. But I would like to put it out there. The people should make a decision whether they want to have an appointed attorney general, like we do now, or an elected attorney general. I think that should come by the people, and that should be on this 2026 ballot.
So how many?
Legislation.
Yeah. So how many things we're gonna have in terms of initiative or referendum on the ballot? Because the governor he's proposed having some kind of an initiative to let the people decide whether they want to have a 1%.
Yes, I heard him.
Surcharge on
yeah.
income taxes to pay for health services and road repair, which I totally disagree with. Personally, I disagree with.
Well, I think things like that, I want to see it up to the people because this is a representative democracy. Let the people decide.
But hold on. Why should we tie health, hospital services into an initiative with road repair?
Oh, so you think it should be a separate thing?
Definitely.
Okay, well,
the premium that people place on healthcare may not be the same that they place on road repair.
Okay, I hear you, and these are the kind of discussions we need to have. These are intelligent decisions, not the ones involving conflation of issues, trying to implement a dual voting system and frame it as choice. That is not no choice. That's confusion, conflation.
How when you say
contradiction.
A dual voting system, what exactly you mean by that?
What I mean by that, in every election jurisdiction, there is one method by law of how the votes are going to be counted, and if any electronic devices are going to be used. That's also because they're different voting machines. And in some jurisdictions, they might not have the touch screen, for example. They might not even have the choice like what we have now. When you go to the poll, you could choose between a paper ballot, mark on directly, or you could choose the touch screen. But both of them go into a tabulator. But I talked to several people in the States, and they said they don't even have the choice. Everything is by electronic voting. No paper ballot. They don't give you a choice and say, here's a paper ballot, you can mark on it. They don't give you that choice. But it's still one voting system, meaning it's only going to be one method implied of counting the ballots. It's either going to be primarily manual counting or primarily electronic counting, but not both within the same voting system. So that's what I mean by dual. And now, yes, there are some states, but some people are making it seem like it's the entire state, like Massachusetts. No, in which they do manual counting in small jurisdiction within the state. It's not the entire state of Massachusetts, but you have small election districts because in the state you have counties. We don't have counties here. Municipalities where they got lots of layer of government, like governor, mayor, and city council people, and all of that. So you have small election jurisdiction where to be voting for a particular thing, you might only have one or two names on the ballot for a particular position. And so it's not like an extensive paper ballot. So in those cases, and it's not like thousands and thousands of votes to count. It's small jurisdictions. So in those cases, they use primarily counting of the ballots manually. But even in those cases, they move away from that. The trend now is to use electronic counting because the tabulators and other counting devices have been proven to be, I would say one is not perfect, no system that's machine that's perfect, but very effective, efficient, reliable, safe way of tabulating votes.
All right. Now, let me ask you something. When we receive the ballots that come in through absentee voting, whether they come from out of the territory, or persons who reside in the territory who didn't go to the polls physically, but they opted to mail in the ballots. How are those ballots counted?
Okay, that's a good question. And I don't want to seem like I'm representing the election system of the Virgin Islands. So I'm going to give you my understanding, and the information can be verified by contacting the office of the supervisor or going to the website, vivote.gov. So I speak on my own behalf. I don't represent nobody. I'm not a spokesperson for nobody. My understanding, the ballots are canvassed. The ballots are manually counted. However, they all go into the tabulator for the count. Those that are...
Hold on. So we're having a double count then?
Yes.
All right.
No, when you say the ballots are counted, but to get the vote, because on a ballot you could have...
All right, okay,
several votes. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I follow it, yeah.
Okay. So they are, whether you vote on paper or you vote in absentee ballot, my understanding, all the voters are tabulated in a central location. It's fed into a central information database, whatever, and that's how they could generate these statistics. You could go back and you could see the 2024 results and before that. And the system was upgraded because of the initiatives by this supervisor of election, Dr. Carolyn Fox, because she didn't come into the system until 2014. Okay? And since then, they've been upgraded. Because remember when MAP ran, and there was an issue with the tabulators because the one program to determine in the case of the voters' intent whether when they let's say they voted for the party, right? And then they still turn around and vote. Remember there was an issue and Mark filed a case. Go back and check it out. So pertaining to this system that we have, there have been several court cases, and the matter has been, my understanding, settled that this present voting system we have is in place. It replaced the old law. Because you have some people saying the language is still on the book. And that's maybe true. The VI code needs to be updated to show that some people don't understand. If there is a new law, an old law, that new law supersedes, it nullifies the old law. So you can't have two laws conflicting with each other. So some of the proponents for this choice are reporting that the language is there. But if that full language was enforceable, then there wouldn't be the need for us to go and try to amend the language.
Mm-hmm.
You try to amend it, but it's already been amended.
Mm-hmm.
So now what we have is exclusive electronic counting of parts.
Mm-hmm.
So a dual system will create another counting system
Mm-hmm.
to operate at the same time, which will cost more money.
Well, hear me
We have
out.
to consider the cost.
Brother, I hear what you're saying, but I just want to share with you and those again listening and viewing that there is a caller who called me from the Dominican Republic
Mm-hmm.
and mentioned to me the number of people who cast votes in that jurisdiction. And they don't have all the fancy machine works that we have here, but they were able to bring about the results of the election in quite a short order, short space of time. So I don't see where simply because people ask that, ballots be counted manually, that if we have the right process, the proper mechanism, that we cannot get this done in short order. And then and thereby allaying the suspicions, the fears of the persons who have requested to have such a system in place.
Well, I disagree with you respectfully
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think if a person has suspicions, you can't take suspicions and hear it to court.
Mm-hmm.
You
True.
need evidence.
True.
And I'm saying if we're going to base on fear
Uh-huh.
to change a system,
Mm-hmm.
to reform a system,
Mm-hmm.
to give it a complete overhaul,
Yeah.
then you're going to have to change a lot of things
Okay.
in law.
All right. That's
I am saying
yeah.
that's not sufficient. If
Okay.
these people are not knowledgeable
Mm-hmm.
about the security measures that are used,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if they are enlightened,
Mm-hmm.
we could alleviate their fears. Because
Mm-hmm.
in the land where ignorance is bliss,
Mm-hmm.
it's folly to be wise.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to be wise.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to allow for common sense
Mm-hmm.
and wisdom to prevail over ignorance and defiance.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like it the way it is. You want it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because you don't understand how
Mm-hmm.
the way we have worked.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just listening to facts.
Mm-hmm.
You are going based on myths.
Mm-hmm.
Facts can be verified.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's entitled to an opinion, a belief, a theory,
Yeah.
speculation.
Mm-hmm.
But let's use our intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
What we have now, nobody, I challenge anybody to tell me that counting votes electronically
Mm-hmm.
is less effective,
Mm-hmm.
less efficient,
Mm-hmm.
less safe
Mm-hmm.
than counting them manually.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is why we reached to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know the person you're talking about, and that's my good friend.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be named.
Mm-hmm.
I love him dearly. That's my really good friend.
Mm-hmm.
And we disagree and we have conversation about Santo Domingo. But what they don't tell you, not he specifically, what they don't tell you is the bad part of it. It's like when you hear they win the lottery or they are by the casino and win some prizes. They don't tell you how much money they put in there already.
Mm-hmm.
They only tell you the good part that they think you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know for sure how effective that system was. And besides, we don't have nothing to compare
Mm-hmm.
because they haven't upgraded the system.
Mm-hmm.
They are stuck in the time warp.
Mm-hmm.
They have not advanced. Maybe because they can't afford it. Because to upgrade the system and get electronic voting machines, remember now they're not under the U.S. flag.
Mm-hmm.
We have certain things, standards that we have to meet based on federal laws.
Mm-hmm.
The Dominican Republic is an independent island nation.
Mm-hmm.
And I am saying, they're not going to tell you, they're going to report all the pitfalls. Don't tell me that was a perfect system.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me there wasn't any issues at all. But they're not going to tell you that. And I'm not interested in it anyway, because I'm interested in what's happening under the U.S. flag. And we are Americans. For those who want to debate it, U.S. citizens are Americans, and
Mhm.
all U.S. citizens are citizens of the United States
Mhm.
of America. And also people argue that it's by statute that the persons in the Virgin Islands get citizenship through an act of Congress,
Mhm.
and that a naturalized citizen is a constitutional citizen. It doesn't matter. The
Mhm.
fact is this: all U.S. citizens are considered Americans,
Mhm.
and you're eligible to get a U.S. passport. I spoke twice at a naturalization ceremony. I know what I'm talking about, okay?
Mhm.
One of the first things that I want is a U.S. passport.
Mhm.
And what if they and they want to vote? I think we should do a study on naturalized to say what percent of them actually vote, because that's the two things they want.
Mhm.
Start talking to them.
Yeah.
They want a U.S. passport, and they want the right to go to vote.
May I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that when we look at this voting, the system of voting in any jurisdiction for that matter, and you have people who early vote, people who vote on election day, and people who vote through absentee ballots, would you agree that there would be certain patterns of consistency in every group?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so far, we, according to the testimony of Dr. Caroline Fox,
Uh-huh.
70% of the voters do early voting.
Right.
And from my knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
the early voting, nobody went there and make a scene. I want to vote that.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody made a scene.
Okay. But hear me,
We're talking about a minority group.
Yeah.
And I am saying, yes, the minority concerns should be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you're talking based on fear and superstitions and myths,
Uh-huh.
you want to overhaul of a system that's
Mm-hmm.
already in place? No.
So let me ask. So let me ask you a question. For argument's sake, let's agree to grant that desire of a minority, where they're asking to have ballots put in a wooden box and to be counted manually. And we're talking about, yes, they have their fears, but what if when you look at the overall results of votes that were cast during early voting, votes that were cast at the station on election day, and you look at the ones that were counted manually and you see a gross disparity, what would that tell you?
If we were to allow it, they would tell me we allow ignorance and defiance.
And when and here it is. Wait, hold on, Here it is, Vidal. We're seeing results that show us a disparity in terms of ballots counted manually as opposed to ballots that were counted electronically through through early voting and actual election day voting. And you're telling me that doesn't send a message?
Well, like I said, it was, see, the difference is Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, and your island home, St. Lucia. I know this is your home now, but I mean your native home.
The place where I was born, I don't have a home there anymore.
Right, your native land.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They, according to the information I heard,
mm-hmm.
they have always been using counting the ballots manually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fine. It works for them. Maybe there is no need to upgrade to electronic.
Mm-hmm.
It works for them, but
mm-hmm.
we've been there.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
I do not, hold on, Vidal. I want us to put out accurate information. I'm not fully apprised of how the situation works in St. Lucia where I was born, but my understanding is that there is some electronic accountability involved in terms of, you know, how the results are, you know, given, etc. And following the last election, there have been all kinds of questions raised about the integrity of the system, especially when it comes to the electronic part of it. So don't just, and I don't think that it's being read manually. I think that even though people use a paper ballot, it appears to me that it's similar to the aspect we have here, where you feed that into an electronic device so that it's read.
Well, I only use it that I don't really care to compare to a foreign nation.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to, let's see, with another U.S. flag.
Mm-hmm. And all I'm going to say to you is that, Budel, I understand your position, but I'm saying let's be a little more accommodating. The people, a certain group of people, whether it be 5, 10, 15% persons, whatever the percentage, you got a small group of people who aren't satisfied, they're not pleased with the way how the system is being run, and they're asking for some accommodation. What does it take from us to grant that to them?
What they need is education. They don't understand.
All right, okay.
They're basing it on fear.
Okay.
And I'm saying to you, they're framing it as choice, but what it is fear. They fear technology.
Okay.
They don't understand how the machines work. They're afraid to use the machine.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have people who don't know how to text, don't want to know how to text, afraid to text.
Mm-hmm.
They're technophobic.
Okay, I am not the defense counsel, so I'm not
giving my opinion.
All right.
I am not speaking as representing facts.
Mm-hmm.
When I give facts, I make it sure it's clear.
Mm-hmm. All right.
When I give my opinion, but everybody's entitled to an opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, my opinion is we have a system that has proven to be effective, efficient, and it's unnecessary to make changes to it unless it's to upgrade or to make reforms to it, to improve it, not to go back to where we were before. We were there before.
All right.
We have advanced.
I got to hold you there with that because...
Okay, with the Attorney General, let me go quickly with that one.
Yeah.
Even though we don't have a constitution yet, I believe this coming election, it should be on the balance to let the people make their wish, what they want, an elected Attorney General or appointed Attorney General. And there could be other things on the ballot too. The people are intelligent enough, the voters, they're going to confuse. You might have a very long ballot. But so what? You got the tabulators. You know, and with the early voting, you don't want to. Anyway, the bottom line is everybody's entitled to opinion. Knowledge is power. My mission and passion is to educate, enlighten, and inspire minds. So I just want people to be inspired and go learn. Go learn how these machines work. Don't be afraid. They can show you, they can demonstrate to you. I don't speak for the Board of Elections or the Office of the Supervisor. Like Eddie, the big-minded citizen, I have information. I will share it, but you could verify facts.
All right.
Thank you. Be blessed.
Thanks for calling and sharing. You be blessed as well. Bye. Hello. Hello, caller.
Yeah, hello.
Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Baptiste.
Good morning to you, my brother, and Happy New Year to you. All the best in 2026.
Yeah, same to you, man.
All right.
But listen, you hear how that lady talk for paperwork with what things that she's talking about? You hear how she is?
Yep.
I got here sitting down, you know why? And smiling to myself. When we had the Sutronic machines, you remember them? You remember them?
Yes, I do.
The great Sutronic machines were electronic machines. And when our good leader, I don't call him my leader, when he went to try to change the system that we have now, you know how she finance, they
Yeah.
had people in the community. Even she was one of them, but going on the same way to changing to what we have now.
Mm-hmm.
To get rid of the schizophrenic them.
Yep.
You know that, right?
I am aware of that.
You are aware of that.
Yes, I am. I am.
So, listen, if people want alternatives to vote, that means nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
But she have gone like, oh, where is the law? It's supposed to be the law. If she against it, nobody else should have what they perceive as the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yeah. Well, she says she's trying to inspire, and she says she's trying to inspire people and inform them and educate them.
Yeah.
I didn't say that's what she said.
Mr. Baptiste,
Uh-huh.
we got to think for what people, other people like Ewa. We know hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
We know hard. Some people like it might like apple, some might like orange.
True.
You understand?
True.
So how go say for a sheet of song like listen, sometimes I just have to turn around and do she does.
I hear you. Yeah.
Serious. But how things going with you, man? I hear you was discussing about Yazoo a little while ago.
Yes, I did. I was sort of like dragged into it, but whatever I know about it, I share, and I don't pretend. I tell it like it is.
Well, you forget the percentages. You may not understand it as then, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the percentage they were coming from a 6% that they were getting for the cover over.
Yep.
And they got how much percent they come to the Virgin Islands and that. How much
we were getting approximately 46%, I think.
we giving them 46%.
Oh, they're okay.
What we get
Yeah, they're getting 46 and we're getting the other. Yeah.
46% to pay for molasses out of the molasses coming from Brazil.
Yeah.
You understand?
Uh-huh. And that's why what I want us to do, and maybe I'm going to try and do it myself, is to find out what the quantity of benefit, to quantify the benefits we got before we had Cruiser and Diageo producing and exporting, and we getting cover overs. Let's see how far the revenues we get today go in terms of the past. I'm going to try and do that myself so I can share with the audience.
Yeah, and also the people who was in opposition to the Diageo deal,
Mm-hmm.
they weren't in opposition to the deal for sale.
Mm-hmm.
It was the percentage.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Because
Mm-hmm.
they were coming out at 6%, they were getting from Puerto Rico.
True.
6%.
Now the people who negotiated the deal did us a disservice. And I can tell you that because when I spoke to at least their chief representative and I asked him if they had considered certain things, and he told me no. I mean, we got to be realistic. We have challenges to deal with here. We have all kinds of things that we could have looked at, and they failed to look at these things. Like I just mentioned earlier, no reason why we should build or at least come up with the money to build a distillery for these guys, and there is no provision therein that after X number of years, the distillery belongs to the people of the territory. All of the contracts I look at along those lines, eventually the building, whatever is constructed, becomes that of the people. And I don't know why that wasn't looked at the time, so we mess up in several ways. Yeah. Baptiste, doesn't matter. Uh-huh.
We signed it into law. The Senate signed it into law before they had before they made I'm talking about before they make
to have a how they do it, we have a cost benefit analysis. That's what you're talking about?
If we had a drawing a blank for
there is something we call an independent cost benefit analysis to see what will actually get out of the deal. I don't think that was carried out. I don't recall having seen that.
Yeah, but to me, that I always tell you in the case of Baptiste, I think that people didn't put a
it was rammed. It was rammed down our throats. They told us we had a very narrow window to act upon this. They really they bamboozled us.
But Mr. Baptiste, in my mind, right, we had two choices. I mean, the Senate, yea or nay.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me that the Senate didn't do that due diligence, because people come in the Senate and speak, and the things them that they find out about the situation with Diageo.
Mm-hmm.
I could name 3 people who say that came into the legislature and put their opinion based on what they learned. Senate Matt, Ken Ferris, and Caleb Emmanuel.
Mm-hmm.
Came and gave testimony on what the deal was all about,
Mm-hmm.
and how it was one-sided to the people of the Virgin Islands.
Mm-hmm.
So the Senate I don't know, but these kind of things are happening now, but it is what it is. And also, 30 years they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was it, right?
Yeah.
And they have the option for next 30 years. All they could have to say is that they want the next 30 years, and automatically it becomes law. You know that?
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Listen, as I have said before, I repeat now, there's a lot of things we do at the legislature, which was done when I was there, which is just wrong. Let me just give you a case in point. Amendments are moved. Usually it's a bill in the nature of a substituting something that's before us. And when you see the amendment in the nature of a substitute, it's about 300-400 pages, whereas the original bill was about 50-70 pages. And then when they move it, and a reading commences, somebody makes a motion to waive the reading. The reading is waived, and everybody goes along. We vote for that. Absolutely ridiculous. We need to stop these things. People need time to study these things, to examine the details to see if the devil is therein. Sometimes we'll come with an amendment. You're amending a particular section, chapter of a law that nobody even knows what you're referring to. And then we go along to get along. We just simply, we second that, we vote for it, because.
And I'm going to go on this, Mr. Baptiste.
Yeah.
Did the Senate see the contract, the actual contract, before it was signed? Did you all see that?
Yeah, the contract was presented to us. Yes, we had that. We had the entire agreement between the government and Diageo. And one of the things about the contract was that, and even contained in the law itself, there were several recitals, and the recitals showed you all that was good, but it did not expose the devil in the details. I'm going to be truthful. I'm going to tell you like it is.
I'm listening.
No, I told you that the recitals presented all the beautiful fluff, but the devil in the details was not revealed.
Well, I'm going to go on this to listen. Only the Creator could come down from wherever he is, like I heard of say without in heaven or whatever, could come down and tell me that Mr. Young Danger and nice fat cutter for that again.
I hear you. Thanks for calling and sharing, my brother. You stay strong. All right. Lines are cleared. 340-773-0390, 340-773-0490. Let me just, a couple of things I want to point out here. Here is the reality. I looked at an online publication this morning, and I saw the list of people being arrested and being charged, and all the different crimes taking place here in the territory. And you know what is sad about it? Yeah, we've come to a place which is not very nice, but the question is, what do we do about it? It's not what you've done, It's the point of realization that forces you to make a change, to take a different course. Hello, caller. Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning and welcome.
Thanks. I don't know if you have discussed this in the past, but due to recent activities in Venezuela,
Mm-hmm.
have you heard anything about the refinery being reopened to process Venezuelan crude?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have not heard that, but there was a recent visit of a delegation um, out of Ghana, and one of the things that they spoke about was the refinery here on St. Croix. So maybe those individuals are looking into some kind of because they were given a presentation by folks
Yeah,
over.
I will have to listen to you on the radio on my computer. It's a little muffled. Let me hang up and continue. Go ahead.
Okay, but as I was saying, that yes, we there was discussion among those folk, and clearly, they got some kind of a presentation from the people over at a Line Tree, and so I believe that there is some serious movement in terms of trying to get the refinery on St. Croix reactivated. In addition to that, we know where the president stands in terms of oil refining and all of what he's doing in Venezuela. I think that we're positioned to get that refinery restarted in short order. But we'll see what happens. All right. So, and even before all of this, even before what has transpired in Venezuela and how the United States is now looking at Cuba, the governor just recently, not the governor, sorry, the president of the United States just recently indicated that perhaps there is a deal in the making as far as the regime in Cuba is concerned. Changes seem to be on the horizon. Oil is playing a critical role. We know of what's going on over in Guyana with the huge oil reserves that have been discovered there and the American concerns or entities involved over in Guyana. I believe we're in a position strategically to capitalize on all of that, and the how should I put it? The idled refinery here on the island may be used, may be restarted to play a critical role in terms of ongoing development. So I certainly suspect that's in the offering right now. Yeah. All right. I was saying earlier on that we have a number of challenges in this place, in the Virgin Islands, particularly on the island of St. Croix. I have noticed that a number of persons who are well off, whenever they're faced with critical health challenges, they opt to travel off island. I mean, we gotta be truthful about it. If you've been listening to just the grapevine, not necessarily what is reported in the local newspapers, people of how should I put it? People who have the wherewithal, whenever they fall ill in the territory, especially on the island of St. Croix, they opt to travel overseas to get treatment, to obtain health services. And that tells us quite a lot about our local healthcare services, especially at the hospital, the Wang F. Louis Hospital. And the fact that, there is very little public confidence in what we offer. And I've mentioned before, and I'm going to repeat again, just to sort of like re-emphasize some of what I've said before. I've known of cases of persons who went to the hospital, didn't get appropriate service because they didn't have, the hospital didn't have the proper equipment to deal with them. There have been times when medicines were lacking, and there were times when personnel were not available. And so certainly, these are some things I think we need to address in this territory. We need to get serious in terms of what we're going to do about mental health cases that we have out there. And it seems like just about weekly, we're hearing of somebody who gets into some kind of a dispute with family members And when you check it out, these are persons who have long-standing mental health issues. And just so much that we need to address. And I've held a position that those who are in elected offices have not exercised the kind of investigation, the kind of oversight that they need to exercise over different government agencies and departments, and hence the reason why we have problems that just mushroom out of control in this place. And so certainly that's something we need to look at. And then I want to touch upon something that we discussed last week. Let me hear what the scholar says before I continue. Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah, good morning once again, Mr. Baptiste. What I wanted to ask you, in light of what just happened a week ago with DOJ and the investigation of misuse of SNAP and MAP benefits through the Department of Human Services, and we had a few people arrested. Now, what I want to ask you, is fraud a crime?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Now that we have established that as a foundation that fraud is a crime, if a government entity commits fraud on its people, should they be brought to justice?
Government entities are never held liable. It's always the persons who man those entities who can or
when
may
I
be
say
held.
the entity, I mean the individuals who run the entity, not the entity itself.
If they are implicated, they should be held liable.
Well, let me start with this. Mr. Mantapool, who worked for the Berlin Water and Power Authority, who was arrested in the AMI smart meter scandal, which is a current metering system, to the point now where WAPA is still guesstimating people monthly electrical invoices. Where is the legality in that?
The legality in terms of his arrest?
No, in that the authority is enforcing guesstimated monthly invoices where a senior allegedly said that she got one for $24,000. So I'm asking, if you're telling me that the system is inoperable, but you're enforcing something that is guesstimated, not that it is metered and given a specific rate to say, well, this is what you use and this is what is owed. How can that be enforced? Where's the legal
well, let me
for that enforcement?
And I may be wrong. I can be corrected, but as far as I know, there is legislation on the books that prohibit guesstimating of bills.
Well, would it be up to the Department of Justice to investigate that matter and indict the individuals, such as the CEO, the CFO, the board, for enforcing something on its ratepayers that is based on Virginia statute is illegal?
Department of Justice has a key role to play in that regard. But again, I want to say to you, sorry to burst your bubble. There have been so many times that the auditor, what's his name? I think it's Stephen van Beverhout, when he was in office.
Yes, but he was for years.
Okay.
Yes.
Several times he brought out damning information against some WAPA and its operatives, and nothing was done. Audit reports are shared with the legislature and the executive branch of government. These guys are fully aware of what's going on. Nothing is being done. You see, the way how the system is set up, there are checks and balances, and there must be coordinated efforts in terms of, moving the ball forward, so that if you have things being exposed by certain entities, and then you have people who are supposed to play a supporting role like the legislature, and their mom saying nothing, you have the guys in the executive branch being complicit, then nothing happens. But I'm submitting to you and those who are listening to this program this morning, that to the best of my recollection, there were legislative action taken to prevent WAPA from estimating bills, sending out estimated bills. And I don't think that is being adhered to.
Exactly, because it would have reflected on that senior who got that invoice for $24,000.
Exactly.
And she is in a residential house. It's not even commercial. And even if it was commercial, a business, I mean, that would have reflected to show that, she has some sort of store with refrigeration that could generate invoice for $24,000 monthly. The other thing I want to add to that part, which I asked you about fraud, well, in August of 2023, the Public Service Commission allowed WAPA to put a LEAC, which is an acronym for Levelized Energy Adjustment Clause. But when you look at the accounting books at WAPA, it's a surcharge, it's a tax. Now, if it's a fuel tax for fuel, and there's no fuel in the process of reverse osmosis production, it's all done with electricity, which already have a LEAC associated with the purchase of propane and diesel. How is it you could put a fuel tax on the production of water when it's all done with electricity that already has a LEAC? And as Sitting Senator Carville said before he was elected last November, that's called double dipping. Well, is double dipping not fraud, Mr. Baptiste?
If double dipping is fraud,
that's why
we have allowed so much.
Fraud is a crime.
We have allowed so much of
that is the definition of fraud being a crime, and I've now laid out the case that this is fraud. Why don't we have an investigation going into that matter?
You floored me with this one.
Could this be another reason why, and I've been hearing people say since the termination of former Attorney General Denise George, that we should elect our Attorney Generals, like what I did when I relocated here to New York in 2018. I was able to be, after working here in New York for 25 years, still under the electoral rule, and I voted for Letitia James, who is the Attorney General of New York State. So this could be an argument for us to have an elected instead of an appointed Attorney General, which will give that person the freedom to now look into the illegality of whether it's a governor, a senator, or just a normal citizen. So that's why I started out.
So let me ask you a question. When the Senate committees, whether it's the Judiciary Committee or any committee in the Senate, when they hold hearings, investigative hearings, and when information comes out that's damnable and it calls for the indictment of persons, what do those committees in the Senate on the mainland, what do they do with the information that they have, the findings of the hearings? Isn't that turned over to the Department of Justice?
Oversight is done,
okay.
And it found that whatever the entity that there has been in violation of U.S. statutes, then it is turned over to the Department of Justice, and then Department of Justice, their investigatory arm is the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Okay. So let me ask you, why can't our legislature have those investigative hearings, exercise their oversight, and based upon information that comes out of those hearings, turn that over to the Department of Justice?
Well, I think that goes back to accountability. And it goes back to where we lack accountability because we're in an illegal structure in the first branch of government based on the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, one representative per district. Mr. John Baptiste, you were born on the island of St. Lucia. I was born in St. Kitts. And if you look, those were the British
Mm-hmm.
So if even British have districts, even right next door, the BVI, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the only, I guess, territory. I'm not sure about Guam, America, so why I haven't looked into that. But where we are acting illegally, that's why Mr. Moorhead wanted reapportionment on what was in the Revised Organic Act of 54 before it was changed in 66 by Mr. Abbott, giving us what we have now, which is unconstitutional structure of the first branch of government. Therefore, there is no accountability. So there's no accountability, there's no checks, we have no balance, and therefore it is ground for what we have now, corruption.
You don't have an argument with me when it comes to that. The fact that, you know, the way how we elect our senators, the level of latitude we give them to avoid accountability because of the very manner in which they've been elected. You know, they're not.
It doesn't matter. Not to cut you off, but it doesn't matter. Every 2-4 years that we have electoral cycles, we could have the people with the best intentions. But if you're in a structure that is illegal, how can you say, well, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, when you're acting illegally? And when I spoke to Chief Legal Counsel at the current legislature, Amos Coffey, his response to me was, well, the people that represent the constituents, even that the current sitting Senate, which is headed by my classmate, Milton Patrick, class of 81, this year, 45 years, and so graduation, that the Senate could ask for that to be done. But why would they kill the golden cow, the goose that lays the golden egg?
That was his response to you?
Well, his response to me was basically when I just like I laid it out for you and the listeners, based on the U.S. Constitution and as an unincorporated territory under the Department of Interior, we have to adhere to the U.S. Constitution, do we not?
We're supposed to. Well, we have to adhere to the U.S. Constitution, and of course, we're in a de facto manner governed by what they've given to us as a revised Organic Act.
Well, like I said,
as a matter of fact,
that was said to me by Chief Legal Counsel Amos Coffey at the legislature.
As a matter of fact, you know, I just somebody asked me for some clarification on the document, and the document, in a sense, generally, it establishes that it operates under the authority of the government of the United States Virgin Islands. And I told the individual, well, I think that there is something lacking here, because to me, if the Virgin Islands government is subservient to the federal government, you cannot operate strictly under the authority of the U.S. Virgin Islands government without acknowledging the supremacy of the federal government over U.S. Virgin Islands government. And so to me, that creates a problem. Whatever we do here locally, even though we're governed by the Organic Act, we have to acknowledge the supremacy of the federal government over our government. That's why when we swear in as senators, the allegiance, and even when you become a U.S. senator, well, that's a little different. But when you swear in as a senator, you're swearing in, acknowledging the federal government as well as the Virgin Islands government. Both of them.
And the federal government supersedes the local authority or the local jurisdiction, local government, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. There are instances where the federal law enforcement partners can come in and just ask our people to step aside. You know, our local law enforcement agencies. The feds can come in and tell them, hey, you guys step aside. We're taking over here. We're in charge.
Let me ask you something, Mr. Baptiste. Do you think, because I'm not too sure about the current curriculum, but I recall in 1971, in third grade, we were taught civics, three co-equal branches of government, the first branch of government, the legislative branch, the executive branch, the judiciary, that if a bill is signed and passed to the executive branch, which is vetoed, that a majority in the legislative branch could override the veto for it to become statutory law. So maybe it all goes back to education. And with the current state of education in the Virgin Islands, where based on what is being reported, that our graduates, whatever your grade level is, that you're currently 2 or 3 grade levels beneath that grade that you're actually occupying.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it all starts with education, because I'm sure you would agree with me that education is a foundation for life, and if you don't have a solid foundation, how can you build anything?
Mm-hmm. Let me just, first of all, in terms of veto of the governor's, overriding the veto powers of the governor, I think you need 2/3 of the legislature to vote in the affirmative. In other words, a simple majority vote will not succeed in overriding the governor's veto. It has to be a 2/3 majority. And if I am mistaken, somebody, if I'm mistaken, somebody,
whenever it's the governor or the president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one. The second thing is that in terms of our education system, we have a cadre of excellent individuals manning the system, especially at the school level. I think above that is where we have a problem, or where most of the problems exist. The people who really, who manage the system in terms of the expenditures of funds, in terms of that even extends beyond the Department of Education to include the Board of Education as well. There is a lack of coordination between the Department of Education and the Board of Education. There is a lack of a connection between the rank and file people who man the education affairs here in the territory and those at the top who sit in the insulated, air-conditioned offices, etc. That's where the disconnect is. And as a result of that disconnect, that's why a lot of things don't happen on the ground. Resources are not being funneled into the classrooms to reach the students as they should. We do not have the proper coordination between our public schools here and the University of the Virgin Islands. So much so that the University of the Virgin Islands complains every year about our graduates not meeting the minimum standards to enter UVI without having to take remedial courses. That has been an ongoing criticism for years, and nothing has been done to address that. Man, we have lots of problems in education here in the territory, not because of rank and file teachers who don't deliver in the classroom, not because of children who aren't willing to learn, but because of basic dysfunctions within the system itself that we have failed to address.
Well, I think one of the things we need to do is overhaul the curriculum. I can't see how we have gone backwards in the last 50 years since I've been in elementary school, where I can remember third grade, we had earth science, and we had, as you got into the upper grades, where you had the trades being taught, because I'm sure everyone is aware everybody's not going to be a scholastic individual. Some people are just good with their hands from birth, who might want to be a carpenter, a mason, a plumber, electrician, which we all need diversification to economy. And I think we need to integrate agriculture from the elementary level. You know, I could recall, like I said, earth science is given a geranium, which is a glass structure with soil, and given a seed, and you water it and you watch this seed germinate. You know, those things could open up young people's mind to say, well, maybe this is something I would like to have a future career in. And agriculture, with all of the technology that we have nowadays, it's not a lot of toiling in the sun, in the soil. You know, you have a lot of equipment and technology, you know, that is now integrated into agriculture. So all I'm saying is that give the children the opportunity to make a choice for themselves and not just funnel them into, oh, we need you to be an engineer, we need you to be a doctor. Of course, we need those people, but we also need plumbers, electricians, and people, whether it is livestock farming, aquaculture, or just a regular farmer, you know, dealing with produce. So I think that we need to.
All of these things that you just mentioned, there is a law on the books that calls for implementation of all these aspects of agriculture. I want to cover the bases from K through 12 up to university. It's on the books, but we have no implementation.
University, right?
Let me hear that.
UVI is a land grant university.
It is.
So, you know, you would want to be in coordination with them from just not K through 12, but from K through whether you're in an associate program or a bachelor's program. And like I said, all fields are needed to have a well-rounded society, so we wouldn't have to where, you know, we have natural disasters and we have lack of individuals to, you know, complete these tasks, such as, you know, rebuilding, because we don't have the skilled labor force to do these jobs. So,
Mr. Grant,
you know, yes,
Mr. Grant, we have right now, there are countries where they have, not that the land mass is limited, but because of access to certain areas where people are now engaging in agricultural cottage industries on a half acre, a quarter acre, and they're using trailers. They've got systems that's constructed within trailers. So you have a trailer placed on the property. In other words, for those of us who have a half an acre of land on St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, we can take a small corner of that half acre and we can have a trailer placed on that has all the necessary implements in there to have a thriving agricultural production facility. Whether it is tomatoes, you want to grow cabbage, what have you, right there in a trailer. So I'm saying that the technology is out there. It's just that our people aren't exposed to it. The technology is not being made accessible to them because we have a failing education system, a failing agricultural system, a failing government. That's the reason why we're not making progress.
Well, let me end on this. I just saw a video of Burkina Faso and, of course, Ibrahim Touré, who's leading Burkina Faso. And they had where they had a lot of mango trees. And the mangoes was just falling on the ground and rotting. Like he said, under the African sun. Well, we have that same problem in the Virgin Islands.
True.
And as you talk about cottage industry, tell me if you drive around the Virgin Islands, I'm guarantee you, if you look in people's yards, you have at least one mature mango tree, sometimes two or three. So we have mature trees that is yielding mango sometimes twice a year because of the Caribbean climate that we're in.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I drove through Williams Delight yesterday, and just about every other home has a Christmas tree or I mean a mango tree or two that is actually blooming right now. And I said to my wife, is this the season for mangoes? I thought mangoes, we have mangoes around August. And she said she's not aware. But I'm telling you right now, we have mango trees in Williams Delight full of flowers in just about every yard in Williams Delight.
By June, those flowers would come to fruition and be mangoes.
Okay.
So what I'm saying to the Department of Agriculture, Dr. Peterson, is that here it is. You don't have to worry about getting slips. Have to worry about planting them and waiting for them to reach maturity, which could take years before you start seeing some yield. Well, what you can do is go around to these individuals. You have their equipment. One of these, like one of these bucket trucks with pickers. You can go around and solicit the homeowners. Listen, I'm willing to purchase your mangoes. You can take what you want for your personal consumption, and we will purchase the rest. So therefore, you have, like you said, a cottage industry, at least where you could start juicing them. You could start turning them into mango chutney. There's many things you could do with mangoes where you could just start locally. I was just in a supermarket across the street from me, and I saw this Spanish lady. She had a papaya. I asked her how much for the papaya. I think it was like $50 for one. In Tennessee, one soursop is like $90. I was in Whole Foods, one aloe leaf, $10. So these are things that is grown in our climate that sometimes you drive around, you look in the bushes and the aloe tree is just growing wild. So why aren't we taking advantage of what we already have?
Important.
We don't have to wait years before we start seeing some sort of benefit, because we already have these things that's mature, blooming, and giving us whatever it is, whether it's mangoes, avocado, breadfruit, these things, that we could just use to have, like you say, first of all, you just want to be self-sustainable before you even think about even doing any sort of exploitation. But just a thought.
It's unfortunate that you and we can have this discussion, but people in a position to make a difference don't have these discussions. A pomegranate fruit imported into St. Croix is being sold at our supermarkets for $5.99. Just call it $6 for one, and St. Croix can grow that. When I drive around as a driver, I'm telling you, and you work for WAPA, I'm seeing there are a couple of street lights, traffic signals. When you approach them, you're coming down an incline, and the branches obscure the lights that you can't see the light until you get closer. WAPA isn't doing anything about that. These branches.
Well, let me give you a quick insight into tree trimming. WAPA used to have a tree trimming crew that worked for the line department, because that is who's affected when the branches go into the phases, which will cause outages. They also were subcontracting with Asplum, which is a company here in the States that would come and do the tree trimming. Well, because of the fiscal conditions, they weren't able to get subcontracted the work out, and they had dismantled their in-house tree trimming crew in the line department. So that's why you have a lot of overgrowth with trees going into the phases and causing an issue. And when it comes to that situation, so I just wanted people to be aware of it.
And I hear you saying that, Mr. Grant, and I know you work with the entity, but hear me out on this. I mean, when you even talk of the financial constraints that WAPA is going through, when you consider their contract with them, how you call it, VTOL, whatever you call it, I mean, no, they.
You mean for the treatment or your VTOL for the fuel?
Yeah, that listener, that contract, in my opinion, that is something that needs some kind of a forensic audit, because I think that, the entity is being shortchanged, perhaps because they don't have the qualified personnel to really stand up and scrutinize this thing as it should be scrutinized. I don't think.
Not to cut you off, but when you talk about the former commissioner, Mr. Van Beverhut, he did an audit of the VTOL program, the VTOL contract. And the reason WAPA got into that big mess was because of their fiscal condition. They didn't have the liquidity, they didn't have the line of credit to have the retrofitting done. So in their contract, they had VTOL who put up the appropriations, and VTOL, because what they did was they said, well, if we're going to put up the money, front the money, well, the interest rate that they charged the authority was like 13-14%, which was outrageous. That's where they tried to renegotiate, and it was already in a signed binding contractual agreement. Why VTOL didn't want to renegotiate. That's why you had where it went from $85 million to the retrofit to whatever it had ballooned to. So that was all in the audit. And,
so I'm saying, okay, if that's in the audit, if it's clear that they're getting not just the pound of flesh, but they're getting blood with the pound of flesh, at what point can we have redress to this matter? Are you telling me that the hands are just tied and nothing can be done about the situation?
Well, no, because your former colleague and my good friend, Greg Miller Jr. and myself, we came up with an initiative because what was problem is the top expenditure, which is fuel. We were spending $200-300 million annually. So when you just had the analysis done by Ernst & Young, which said that WAPA indebtedness was $490-something million. Well, how do they make up for that when you have a shrinking consumer base? Where you are an island nation, you're not on a grid like we're here in America, where you would go to the neighboring states and tie into their grid, which would reduce your cost. So if you have less customers to shoulder the burden of your top expenditure, which is fuel, then how are you going to reduce the rate of the kilowatt rate and still be able to maintain operational expense? Things were so bad. Just recently, they were taking employees' GERS contribution, which they were taking out of people by weekly checks. And instead of sending it to the retirement system, they was putting it back into the authority to maintain operational expense. Things are so bad that they no longer have a line of credit to purchase fuel. It's cash and delivery. I think it was in December you just had an outage in St. Croix without proper explanation of what was the causation of the outage. Well, it was the fact that they didn't have fuel to run the generator to generate electricity. So we gave them the opportunity to have a revenue stream outside of the Virgin Islands, which is the only thing WAPA based on their mandate Title 30 is to produce low-cost electricity and potable water for the public. So we said, well, we are now in contract with 7C to produce the city water, which they're doing it through reverse osmosis. But we had a better process. Prior to that, when we were doing thermal evaporation to the boilers, and that what we could do is we could do that same process once again, because all it took was to get the IDE machines, which IDE stands for Israeli Desalination Engineering. This is the corporation that made this equipment so we could do thermal evaporation. Well, I had done some research, and when it was Line Pre-Bay before it's now Port Hamilton terminal, I was able to get in touch with the then president of Line Pre-Bay, who then told me through via email that the IDE machines that was there from Hovensa days, which is still there on the property, that they had basically put them as surplus because they themselves had gone to reverse osmosis. So what I said was, okay, well, what we could do at St. Croix per se, because St. Croix was had what we have as waste heat boilers. We then could have made the low pressure saturated steam to the waste heat boiler, piped it to these IDE machines to make potable, drinkable water for human consumption. And I then integrated the bill from former Senate President Armando Rakilaga, which he has written this back in the 90s, to say that we could do a public-private partnership to bottle the water and export it as a commodity. But because of politics back in the 90s, that never came to fruition. But as we look now, some 30 plus years later, where water, since 2020, which was being traded on Wall Street for the first time, based on what is being reported by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which monitors commodities, water has surpassed sweet crude, which is the #1 crude oil used in refinery, and gold, which is now at 5,000 plus per ounce as the #1 futures commodity. When Donald Trump last year just implemented the tariffs in last April, and we saw that in 2 days the market lost $4.5 trillion, I looked at the top 5 water stocks. The top water stock was selling at $151 per share. After they had the announcement for those 2 days, they lost $10 a share. But they regained its share, that $10 that they lost, within 2 weeks, because water is a necessity for life. So when we said in that initiative that we could bottle water through that process, which would give us a top quality water, we could use our celebrities, Tim Duncan, and our athletic celebrities. We have Aaliyah Boston now in the WNBA, Julius Jackson, Boxing Hall of Fame. We have individuals that have global appeal that we could do advertisement, which people would have. They have household name recognition, and we could do a commercial using the territory because we have sun, sea, and sand, and we could market our water globally. So we have the ability to have an outside way of generating revenues, which will subsidize the authority, because with the volatility of the fuel market due to geopolitical issues like Trump in Venezuela, or what's going on in the Gaza Strip, or what's going on with Russia, well, if we are generating, say, $500 million annually from the sale of water, well, some of that money, because what would be the public utility supplying the steam, and the private sector will be the one that build the factory, bottle the water, do all the marketing. But a percentage of that revenue that is gained from the sale of the water would be going as a permanent subsidy. So therefore, when we have volatility in the market, the authority don't have to run to the PSC and ask for pricing fee. Well, that we could lower the actual cost
Right.
of electricity.
Well, let me just say that hopefully, folks will listen this time around. It's an election year, and let's see what happens. But we're up on the hour, so
Anyhow, say no more.
yeah,
Baptiste, it's always a pleasure having discourse with you because, like you said, if me and you could see this, there should be no reason why our elected officials are not able to see the same thing. And all me and brother I was asking was to bring us into the world, have a Q&A. If you wanted us to explain to you, like I'm explaining to you and the rest of the public, how this could benefit the Virgin Islands. And another thing that this would be able to do too is that the GRS could now invest in this.
absolutely.
Instead of just worrying about the SPV bonds and what's going on with the sales of rum. Because, where the sales of rum could plummet, water is actually on the incline. Anyhow, Mr. Jean-Baptiste, you take care, and thanks for giving me this platform.
Thanks for calling and sharing, and congratulations. We applaud your activism. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, folks, I want to share with you that I do have a program along with some younger folk on Friday evenings from 7 o'clock, 7 to 8:30. And this coming Friday, we're expecting to have an orthopedic surgeon on board with us. Of course, he'll be doing a live stream thing because he's based in Houston, Texas. We've had a number of persons in the territory who have had to do joint replacement surgeries, etc. I believe some of them have been his patients on the mainland. And he's going to be live with us this coming Friday. He's going to be streaming live with us on Choices. And we're on from 7 o'clock in the evening until 8:30 every Friday evening. Barring some kind of event that preempts us, we're on. And so I want you folks to tune in. Those of you who would like to question that young physician. By the way, he's married to a native Virgin Islander who's also in the field of, in the medical field. And so this coming Friday, I'm asking you guys to tune in. You will be afforded an opportunity to call in and ask questions of this individual. I know that at one time he had an interest in giving some free service here in the territory. All he was asking for was to allow him to have a room at the hospital where his patients could recuperate following surgery. And for some reason, that didn't work. You see all the things we've been discussing this morning, myself and Mr. Grant, about the dysfunctions we have in the system, the things that can be done to better life here, to make the VI a stronger place for, not for some, but for all. And we're just failing to do that. Well, like I've told you guys, I believe in living a life of service. Service to my creator and service to my fellow human beings. So that's why I continue to be on radio, to be active, to be involved, to share information with those who are willing to listen and to share with me in conversation. So this coming Friday, I'm inviting you all to tune into Choices, where we'll have this doctor online with us, and he should be able to answer some questions, pressing questions to you. I see a number of Virgin Islanders. I see them sometimes, they're walking with a limp, they're having all kinds of joint issues that they tell me about. And hopefully we can reach a place where we can have such services readily available here in the territory, so that people can benefit from that. A couple of things I wanted to mention. As I go into Christiansted town at night, Christiansted is just, coming alive. It's alive. I like to see what's happening with new places opening up. I'm offering all kinds of different fares for people. Unfortunately, when you come through Watergut Road, people, I just mentioned to Mr. Grant how there are some traffic lights being obscured by overhanging branches, and something needs to be done about that. We have a number of roads that aren't striped when you're coming. I've spoken about it before. This morning I saw a guy in the dead left lane, completely avoiding the middle lane where he can make a turn at Contentment to head towards the bypass. But from dead left, he makes a turn ahead of me because the road is not clearly marked. We have so many situations where the roads aren't striped properly. And our government officials don't seem to give a rat's tail. It's like they just don't observe what's happening. And then when you come through Watergut Road, people, going towards, how you call it, Holger Dance Hotel, man, an absolute disaster. And don't tell me our government officials can't see that. People coming from the seaplane, they have to traverse that. It's crazy. Potholes, and then when you come right in front of Holger Dance, there is a canal in there, a channel filled with water. It's just unacceptable, man. We got to do better. We can do better. I wanted to leave that with you. And don't forget, Friday night, please join us. So I'm going to take my leave until we reconnect. You guys stay safe, be blessed, give thanks and praises unto the Most High. And I want to thank all those who have called in this morning, and even those who are just listening and viewing across the different wavelengths. I want to thank you. Be blessed. Bye.